That's why I know Buffalo and wide right and all the heartbreak, and I lived them all. To think about those teams bouncing back after losing Super Bowl after Super Bowl and still making it back and winning the championship game to get to the Super Bowl. That's why the accomplishment of those Buffalo Bills is it's being overlooked, but we feel it now because, damn, it's hard to
Yeah.
lose the Super Bowl. Last time we lost the Super Bowl was in Miami, Super Bowl 54 to Kansas City.
Yep.
The next year, now we had a global pandemic. It shut down the whole world. But the next year, all of our guys tore ACLs. Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Garoppolo got hurt, and we won 6 games that year. So it's real. That Super Bowl hangover is real.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris. I'm Mike Catalana. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As we always ask, we've got a special guest this week. He's a guy with Western New York ties, no doubt about it, a Buffalo native. He is the play-by-play voice of the San Francisco 49ers. Greg Papa, welcome to Buffalo Plus. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mike. I can't wait to come back. I'm going to be there for the holiday on Thanksgiving and spend the weekend there, and then do my radio show on Monday after the game. And I guess this may be the last time, and I still call it Rich Stadium. I know
Yeah.
it's high now, but I go back to when that place opened in '73 and was there. Remember when Herb Mulkey ran back the opening kickoff for Washington? First play in the stadium, they gave up a 100-plus yard kickoff return. And I was there, obviously, saw every centimeter OJ's 2003 and the playoff run in '74 and losing to Pittsburgh. And OJ may have been even better in '75, and then Thurman coming in and all those great teams. And
Yeah.
so this game, I did the Raider games for 21 years. So I've done a lot of games in that stadium, and I always get a little conflicted. I get a little confused which team I'm rooting for. So you may hear a touchdown, Buffalo. No, can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah.
But I always Buffalo's great. So it's going to be a hard game for us.
Yeah, it is going to be. It's going to be a tough one. And I look down the list, and I know everybody always says, when a team is struggling, it's always like they've had injuries. They have injuries. I don't believe I've ever seen a season in terms of not just the number, but the players who are out. You made Purdy, obviously McCaffrey was hurt. Then you start looking down the list of Bosa and Trent Williams and Greenlaw and Ayuk and Hargrave. Like, what's going on out there this
year? We have a Super Bowl hangover. And the great thing about Marv's teams in the early 90s is Buffalo kept, and I went to a couple of those. I went to the one in Minneapolis when they got run over by Washington and Thurman lost his helmet, and Harry Connick Jr.'s band member took the helmet. What the hell are you doing here? And then I went to the one in Pasadena when the Cowboys and they played Billy Ray Cyrus. Every time Dallas scored a touchdown, it was achy, breaky heart, and my heart was breaking. And that was the great thing about those Bills teams. They kept coming back. Although our Super Bowl hangover is a Las Vegas hangover, and those are hard to get over. So losing to that game to the home of the Raiders and losing it to Kansas City. So obviously the injuries, hard to explain. Dre Greenlaw got hurt in the Super Bowl, running on sidelines. I think partly, Mike, there was a scheduling issue with where we would practice that week, and the Chiefs, because they're the AFC team, they got the Raiders facility in Henderson, and we got to go to UNLV, which is actually closer to the Strip, although we stayed out in Henderson. But they had a really soft field to practice on, which our guys were not happy with. And they're not saying it, but I'm saying it. I think it was directly attributable that spongy surface they made us practice on the week of the Super Bowl at UNLV. I think it directly attributed to the injury to Dre Greenlaw. He tore the Achilles on the other side. He had a right Achilles tendonitis going into that game. He tore his left Achilles just running on the field to play. It wasn't even a play. And then I think Christian McCaffrey's bilateral Achilles tendonitis this year could be a factor of that, and Debo getting hurt in the game, and it went on and on. So we played a game in Green Bay this last Sunday. We had two guys, Fred Warner and Diamador Lenore, on our defense start that game. That started before we went to the Super Bowl, we had to beat the Lions in the championship game. The week before, we beat the Packers, January the 20th. We had 2 guys on defense. Now, some have left due to free agency, and that's the nature. Eric Armstead's gone and Chase Young's gone. It happened. But the injury factor has been just at times in this last game, not having Brock Purdy. I mean, what are the 4 most important positions on a football team? Your quarterback. If you got a right-handed quarterback, and everybody does now, your left tackle, your premier rush end, it'd be like losing Bruce Smith, on those great teams. Buffalo, that's who Nick Bosa is. And then the shutdown corner, Charvarius Ward. We didn't have those 4 positions in Green Bay, so we got rolled in that game. So I hear you. They're not going to make injuries as an excuse, but they are a bit of an explanation. That's why I know Buffalo and, wide right and all the heartbreak, and I lived them all. To think about those teams bouncing back after losing Super Bowl after Super Bowl and still making it back and winning the championship game to get to the Super Bowl. That's why the accomplishment of those Buffalo Bills it's being overlooked, but we feel it now because, damn, it's hard to lose the Super Bowl. Last time we lost a Super Bowl was in Miami, Super Bowl 54 to Kansas City.
Yep.
The next year, now we had a global pandemic. It shut down the whole world. But the next year, all of our guys tore ACLs. Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and we won 6 games that year. So it's real. That Super Bowl hangover is real.
Yeah, I always tell people, covering those teams with the Bills, there's this national narrative about losers. I always think of that team as they won. I mean, because we saw them win so many huge games, but to come back, and at the end, like they were laughing. They go, we know America doesn't want us back in the game, but we're coming back. And to do it 4 times, especially the way they lost, it's still unreal to me that they did that.
Well, Super Bowl 25 is one of the best Super Bowls ever played against the Giants. Yeah. And had Norwood made that field goal, and I knew right away it was too long for him. Yeah. But had he made that kick, do you come back the next year? Do you come back the year after? Do they go on a string and win 2 or 3 in a row? We don't know. But the bottom line is you're not losers. You kidding me? You won the AFC 4 consecutive years. No team in the history of this league going back to the Super Bowl era can say that. Now, you'd like to break through and win a Super Bowl. The Niners won 5. They were 5 for 5 in Super Bowls. The Niners haven't won a Super Bowl. They're freaking out here. They haven't won one since Super Bowl 29. Yeah. And Steve Young and beating the Chargers. That was after the 94 year. That was January of 95. We're talking about 3 decades. So they're like, but the Lions have never been to one. I mean, it's hard to get to a Super Bowl. So I know what Buffalo accomplished going to those 4 straight Super Bowls.
Let's look at the team. So McCaffrey's back. It's a serious thing he's been dealing with. He's back. How back is he?
He looks fine on the practice field. I thought, I watched him when he came back off our bye and he ramped it up to play in Tampa Bay. He looked like McCaffrey. But usually, Mike, because he just takes such a pounding to play and he works so hard that whenever the Niners have a bye week during the season or even a mini bye after a Thursday game, McCaffrey's body just looks so fast. It's like, whoa. Yeah. All the wear and tear and all the hits he takes. When he came back to play against Tampa Bay, I thought he looks okay, but he's ramping it up. But then going into the Seattle game after he played the 1 game, he looked like that lightning quick, explosive McCaffrey to me on the practice field. In games, it's just not there. Now, he had 31 yards rushing in Green Bay last game. Pro Football Focus sent me the numbers. He had 26 yards of the 31 were after contact. So he's basically getting a half a yard, and then they're contacting him. So he's not getting to the second level by the blocking. Why? Well, the line is not blocking as well. They're keying on him. But he had back-to-back plays in Green Bay that I know are going to disturb him. Brandon Allen fumbled the ball. One time he got hurt by Lucas Van Ness and Kenny Clark. Their 3 technique recovered the ball, but Christian missed a block on Van Ness. He had to go across the formation to block him from right to left, but he got there, and it was raining at that time, and I'm not sure he had the right cleats on. But anyway, he slipped and fell. Van Ness bull rushed him. McCaffrey is a great football player in every regard, not just running or catching. And he's like Thurman Thomas. You could line him up at a wide receiver and he could lead the league as a slot. He's that good. And he also picks up blitzes. That play, he got bull rushed. He got knocked to the ground. Van Ness got by him, hit the ball with his helmet, and Allen fumbled, and they recovered. The very next offensive snap, when we got the ball back after they scored a touchdown, they moved him out wide as a wide receiver. They stacked him behind Jawan Jennings, a really good blocking wide receiver. And Christian got it, and the left tackle got out in the tunnel screen, and he's going down the left sideline, picked up 23 yards. At the end of the play, he fumbled. The ball got punched out of his hand by Keyshawn Nixon. So take all the stats. They're not there. The production. He's not scored a touchdown. The guy scored 21 touchdowns last year. He had a streak, Mike, where he scored a touchdown in 17 consecutive games. He tied the NFL record. He's not scored. So a lot of little things, fumbling, picking up a blitz. He's not there yet, but that doesn't mean he won't be there on Sunday night. But I know how hard he works because he works maniacally to get back. But we kind of thought when McCaffrey comes back off the bye, we'll start to roll. Well, they won the first game in Tampa. They've lost 2 in a row with McCaffrey. So to answer your question, he's back, but he's not completely back to being run CMC.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the line. It's obviously would be very impactful to have Trent Williams. I know there was a lot of talk about him playing last week. Then he's not out there. They miss him a ton, right? I mean, that's an understatement when that guy's not on the field.
Well, they got a roster full of great players. They had 9 Pro Bowlers last year and like 7 made All-Pro. But they got one guy on this team. George Kittle may get there. Nick Bosa may get there. Fred Warner may get there. But if Trent Williams retired today, he just said, I'm done. He is going to be he's one of the best left tackles in the history of football. So not having him, but his last game that he played with the ankle injury, and I saw his warm-up that game. I didn't think he would be able to go, but he took a shot at Toradol and he played. He got bull rushed by Seattle. There were a couple of rushes where I was like, whoa, that's not Trent. And he played okay, but he played at like 70%. So we'll see. I think that Seattle game made it worse, where he just could not play in Green Bay. And we'll see if he'll be able to go in Buffalo. But, Trent Williams at 85% is better than most left tackles in football.
Right.
But Trent Williams at 65%, 50%. Do you want to play him under those conditions? So we'll see. If he can find a way, because like McCaffrey and Bosa, they're maniacal about preparing to play. But if he can't go, he can't go. But they need him. And I think there's a lot of optimism, Mike, that Brock Purdy will be able to play in this game on Sunday night.
You've been around this league a long time. As great as a player is, when a team tests him out and senses weakness, they will just attack, right? I mean, if Trent Williams isn't Trent Williams, they're going to go at him. It's just the way this league is, right?
Yes. And I go, he's had this ankle injury, and it's a bone bruise on the ankle. And he missed 3 games last year. He actually played in the Cleveland game. We wound up losing that game in a missed field goal on the shores of Lake Erie. Then he missed the next 2. We lost all 3 of those games. So he's that good. And then doesn't play Sunday in Green Bay, we lose. And I go back, we had a you may have seen the game. It was a playoff game at Lambeau. It was January of 2022 at the end of the 21 year. We won on the block punt. And Trent played that game. He had one. He's kind of tackle that you actually game plan for. I've never seen it before. Where they run tunnel screens behind him and he gets out in space. But in that game, they actually used him like an inline tight end that moved. He came across the formation, blocked Rashawn Gary, obliterated him. But then later in the game, he hurt that ankle. That's been a problem. They won the game. And I remember seeing him walk out of Lambeau. He had a boot on that foot. And I thought, brother, you can't play in LA. And he said, I'm going to try. Well, he did play the next week in the championship game against the Rams. He was not himself. They had that game where it was a 2nd and 1. If they could have converted the 2nd and 1 or a 3rd and 2, because they lost a yard on the 2nd and 1 back-to-back plays. And Trent was involved in both of them. Eric Weddle came down from safety to blow up a run play. And you thought, maybe he shouldn't have played. So sometimes they're better off not playing. But if he's not, again, 85% of Trent or 90% is better than everybody else, but 65%. So sometimes you have to be smart. But he's just such the whole offense. Now, we are running a little more behind the right side of the line, and Dom Pooney, the rookie right guard, and Colton McKivitz. But back in those days, we ran left all the time behind Trent, behind Aaron Banks, the left guard. And if Trent's just not Trent and moving people, it's hard to be able to run the ball behind him.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about Debo Samuel. Obviously, he's been a great player. You were talking about how McCaffrey can line up on the outside. Debo could probably play running back, and they put him back there sometimes. Totally from the outside, just watching. I feel like he's the kind of guy that can get himself a little distracted, get himself too fired up, get himself, we saw some stuff on the sidelines and all, and I know he doesn't have Ayuk on the other side. Where is he right now?
I think he needs to play like that. He needs to play with that fury. And he and Trent, when we go on the road, and hopefully they both, play, and Trent's back, they come out with the big boom boxes, like Radio Raheem and Do the Right Thing. And they kind of have to have that edge. So I don't think that's it for Debo. He's just not been able to break tackles this year. Debo is a special player. Really, I haven't seen a player like him. I mean, Thurman is like McCaffrey. McCaffrey's like Thurman Thomas, where he's a great running back, but he can run any route, and he's such a great pass catcher. Debo's the opposite. Debo's a Z wide receiver, a flanker that moves, but I call him a Z back because they line him up in the offensive backfield, and he takes handoffs, and he's not a wide receiver. Cordero Patterson is a wide receiver who plays running back, but really he's a kick returner. He just wants to run over everybody like a kick returner. Debo Samuel sets up blockers. He is a running back. If he just said, I'm not going to play wide receiver at all anymore, and he played strictly halfback, he could be one of the best running backs in the NFL. Now, that's what he was. This year, I don't know what it is. Maybe we're too predictable. When we motion him in the backfield next to Brock, or McCaffrey could be on the other side, and we put him in the orbit motion where he goes behind the quarterback and McCaffrey, and they pivot handoff to him. Maybe we're tipping it. Maybe it's too much. He's not effective on the jet sweeps. Look at the rushing numbers, the yards per carry, way down. Go back to where he was in 21. He was incredible. You have to go back to Frank Gifford. They played football different. What was Frank Gifford? Was he a quarterback, a halfback, a wide receiver? He played them all. They all did back there. It was, a different era of football. Debo's like that. He's a throwback. But what he was an insane tackle breaker. You could not tackle Debo. This year, he's not getting the block the same. He's not breaking tackles the same. He's not been the same player. I don't know why. He's 29 years of age. I think teams are keying on him, but he's just not. He's like McCaffrey's numbers are way down. But Christian's only played 3 games. Debo's missed a couple of games. He woke up one morning of a game with pneumonia. It was weird. He's so thick as an athlete, Mike, that he has a lot of soft tissue injuries, not only in games, but in practice. He can't get through it. But the bottom line is, for whatever reason, he's not been as productive this year. So McCaffrey's hasn't played as many games. He's not been as good. Debo's numbers are way down, and we haven't even gotten to Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
He was the X wide receiver. He's your split end. He tore his ACL and his MCL against Kansas City, and he was not very effective with the hold in going back to training camp. So why are the Niners 5-6 and not like they were last year when they wound up, and they should have been better than 12-5, and number 1 seed in the NFC? And McCaffrey's not been the same. Debo's not been the same. Ayuk's not been the same. The one guy who's playing like he played last year and throughout his career is George Kittle at tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, still making plays for him. Do they have it in them to make a run? It almost feels like, when I'm hearing you and watching the team play, that it feels like this ain't our year. It's the Super Bowl hangover. Now, the way the NFC West is, you're still in it. I mean, you're right there. But do they have it in them not just to come to Buffalo and win, but to go on enough of a run and see where they are getting into the playoffs? Do you think they do?
I don't know. I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't. I haven't seen it enough from them. They really have played one outstanding quarter of football this year. The third quarter against the Dallas Cowboys on that Sunday
Right.
night game.
Oh yeah.
They outscored them 21-0. They outgained them 167 yards to 16 in that quarter. They basically ran them in that quarter. They only had 6 points at halftime, but then they busted a couple of times with CeeDee Lamb in the fourth quarter, and they wound up winning by a score. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Um, I work with the Golden State Warriors, cover their games here in the Bay Area. The Warriors had a 5-year stretch where they went to the NBA Finals every single year, and they won 3 championships. And then their bodies got tired. They had a global, the pandemic year hit, and they hit rock bottom. They lost. They only played 65 games that year, but they were 15-50, the worst record of the league.
Yeah.
So when you play deep into seasons, whether it's the NBA Finals or the 49ers, Mike, have played. The last 5 years coming into this year, they've been in the NFC Championship game 4 times. They've won it twice to go to the Super Bowl. So they played 12 playoff games the last 5 years. So that's 3 playoff games each year, not every year, but 4 or 5. So that's 12. That's like 3/4 of a season. But these playoff games are different. And Super Bowls, you guys know, it takes a wear and tear on your body. And these guys are older now. We got a lot of guys that are late 20s, early 30s. They're breaking down. I don't know. I don't know. Up until this last game in Green Bay, they just were losing a lot of one-score games. Special teams have been an unmitigated disaster. So I'm waiting for them to kick in, because they've had years, even in these championship runs, where they were 3-5, 3-4, and they still got to the NFC title game. So I thought that 4-4, 5-4, they could do it. But then they lose to Seattle, where they give a game away at home. They go to Green Bay, and they got run. They got trampled. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't stop the run. So, and to answer your question, I don't know. They don't know. They think they have it in them, but do they have it in them? I don't know. And then there's a psychological toll losing all these games when you lose Super. We scored first in the overtime of the Super Bowl and lost. No one's ever done that. So I don't know. I think because the NFC West being so mediocre, and I'm being kind, they could pull it off, but nobody really knows. They don't know. Does that, nobody knows. The football gods may know. Nobody else knows.
You mentioned the Super Bowl. I feel like there's a comparison between Sean McDermott and Kyle Shanahan, one on offense, one on defense. Brilliant minds at what they do, but there's been issues in play calling, situational things. That happens when you don't win in the biggest moments. Yet he's been there and gotten there. He's made it farther than Sean as a head coach. Where's Shanahan now?
Sean McVay's won a Super Bowl. Kyle is not.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Sean McDermott.
Oh,
I'm saying in terms of Sean in Buffalo, who hasn't gotten to the AFC Championship game, hasn't taken his team.
Well,
he's a quality coach. He knows his side of the ball, but there have been issues. I mean, obviously, he's one of those guys, if he ever left San Francisco, he's on the top of mostly everybody's list. But where is he with Niners fans? Because there is like a tendency to wear after a while. Same things happen in Buffalo.
That's why I love this matchup, because Coach McDermott's expertise is on defense and Kyle Shanahan's on offense. So we're going to get it. Let's be honest here. Kyle Shanahan would have 2 Super Bowl championships. How many would you guys have if it wasn't for the damn boogeyman in Kansas City? I mean,
they've knocked him out. Yeah,
I don't have to tell you. The 13-second game is unfair. What happened last year? I thought we were going to play the Bills in the Super Bowl, and that wind the winds in that stadium just blew that field goal right, and Stephon Diggs can't catch a ball. But if you give Mahomes a heartbeat like we did, you're going to lose.
He'll beat you.
We had Kansas City Super Bowl 54 in Miami. They were down 20-10. They scored 10 points with 7 minutes and 13 seconds to play. They have a pass over the middle to Tyreek Hill. It gets overturned, incomplete. It's 3rd and 15, 7:13 to play. We get off the field on that. We beat them. They run 2-3 chip jet wasp. All of a sudden, Tyreek Hill runs an over route against Emmanuel Mosley. They pick it up. 2 plays later, they're in the end zone. They don't stop. It's an avalanche. They got to 31 points. They had 10 with 7 minutes to go in the game. You know it. I mean,
we've seen it.
Mahomes, I blame this on Patrick Mahomes Sr. If he never had his son, how many Super Bowls would Sean McDermott have? How many would Kyle Shanahan have? But the reality is, the guy is alive. He's tormenting our lives. How do you beat this guy, though? We can't do it. You can't.
I know. Yeah, and we've seen it. You know, it's happened to everybody. It's happened to the Bengals. It's happened to the Eagles. It's happened to the Niners. Everybody who gets with them. Yeah, they beat them in the title game. Yeah,
you guys beat them in the regular season.
4 times.
Somebody's got to figure out a way to beat them. So,
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you is, because I know you follow the Bills, and I know you've been watching them. We talked about all those years with all the great teams and then the bad teams, and then they go through this drought, and then they get 17. They get Josh Allen. When you watch him and you see him, what do you think about him, and what do you think about his connection to your hometown?
Fireball. He's the fireballer from Fireball. He's from the Central Valley.
Yeah.
Fresno State didn't want him. I mean, I know he's a late developer, and I've read a lot about him, read books on him, and his story is amazing. He was I loved him at Wyoming. You know who would have loved him was Al Davis.
Yeah.
You just owner of the Raiders would have loved Josh. Big, strong quarterback. And I remember when he first was, even in college and then early years with the Bills, he couldn't make a simple check down to a back in the flat. He'd throw it off his shoes or behind him, and then the completion percentage goes up. He's just incredible. Last time we played you guys, the Niners, was the pandemic year of 2020.
Yep.
And he made some throws in that game, rolling hard to his right, and you thought he's going to run out of bounds. If you let him get out to his right hand, heaven help you. Yeah. And he got right up to the sideline, and he threw balls down the sideline to Gabe Davis, and it was like nobody on earth could keep that ball in the field of play. The ball is going to go out of bounds. He's rolling all the way to his right, and he throws it back. It's like, how did he do that? We had Jimmy Garoppolo then. After that game, Kyle Shanahan was convinced, I got to have one of those guys.
Yeah.
You can't win without one of them. So that was the year we, made the trade to get Trey Lance. We tried to get Matthew Stafford. Couldn't get him. Deshaun Watson, we would have taken him, and then he got, obviously, with all those allegations off the field, you couldn't touch the guy. But you had to get one of those guys. Brock Purdy's not that, but Brock is a smart quarterback. Who was Josh Allen? He's the best quarterback in the history of the Buffalo Bills, and by far the most talented. And I watched Jack Kemp play. I thought Joe Ferguson was incredibly underrated. Obviously, Jim Kelly and the K-Gun and what they were able to run, but just the pure ability at his size to throw the ball and run the ball. That 4th and 2 against Kansas City, unbelievable. But the thing with Josh was, as good as he is, he would have one of those, what the F are you doing plays. He's not doing that. I saw he didn't have an interception all year, threw one later. I think right now he's the MVP of the league. A lot of guys are playing well, obviously. Saquon and Lamar's always there. But I think he's the most valuable player in the league. He really is that. You lose that guy, you can't exist. So I hope they know. And he's perfect for Buffalo, his temperament, the way he talks, the way he appreciates the people of that community. Jim Kelly was like that as well. I was a Fergie guy. I think he was underrated.
Mm-hmm.
He became a good thrower. He always was. Didn't ask to throw much when OJ was trampling the league. But I think very simply what he is arguably the best player. And we talked about Mahomes, so it's hard to compare them. I think he's one of the best players in the NFL currently. And I think you'd make the point. He's clearly the best quarterback to me, talent-wise. He's got to get to a Super Bowl. Jim got to 4 in a row. But he's by far the most talented quarterback the Bills have ever had. And I think when it's all said and done, hopefully in the years the Niners don't get there, we're always pulling for Buffalo. And I'd love to have a 49ers-Bills Super Bowl, Mike. But I think in time he could be thought of as the best Buffalo Bill of all time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Sometimes, cover the team and, we try to keep that focus on covering them. But we even talked amongst each other about how fortunate you are to get to watch this guy play every week. Because when you have that guy, you're in everything. And he just does so many things. And he's improved. He's adapted his game without losing his superstar ability. and he deserves it. Honestly, he's done enough to get there. And who knows? This was the year everybody thought they'd be taking a step back. And honestly, I think it's one of the most balanced teams they've had, and they're getting some guys back. So we'll see. Now, when you get there, again, we know your Buffalo ties. So you got to make sure you're focused on, what you're doing on that side of the ball. I want to know before you get there. Everybody wants to know this from a Buffalo guy. Where do you take people for wings when you're there?
You kidding me? So this game is going to be hard for me because my dad took me to every single Bills game. So we had 6 season tickets. We went to the old rock pile. My first game was it 70 or 71 when Dallas came in? Craig Morton hit Bullet Bob Hayes on a slant route.
I think that was 71. I'm not positive.
First game of the year. I think it was 71. I went to every single game. 72, 73, OJ's 2003, went to every one. My mom would take me. I remember going to a New York Jets game. OJ was gone. Joe Namath was gone. It wasn't snowing, Mike. It was raining, like 35 degrees, 40. My dad wouldn't go. My mom took me. I could still see the plastic bag over her head and her mascara running. And she's like, Greg, can we go home now? It's like, the game's not over yet, Mom. So I've lost my mom and dad.
Yeah.
My mom died May 19th of 2022. She died in my arms. I haven't been back to Buffalo since. So this is going to be an emotional trip for me to go back. It's been hard to even think about going back. It's not the same without Mama, Papa, and my dad. So, my mom and dad are Frank and Teresa Papa. So we like Duffs, but are you kidding me? It's Frank and Teresa Bellissimo in the Anchor Bar.
That's it.
We're going to go right back to the Anchor Bar. I'm going to a Sabre game on Friday night when I get in.
Yeah, you're full in, right? This will be great.
Full in. I'm barely, and this Sunday night game, and I'm going to stay over after the game. And I don't want to hear, I had enough of bang on the drum all day going to Green Bay.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the talking proud. Are we still doing that after a touchdown?
The shout song, you're going to hear it. Yeah, no, you're going to hear the shout song. Yeah. That's what they're playing. By the way, the weather for this season, every home game has been outstanding. But we're getting the weather. Yeah, it's been great, but I think Sunday we may be getting some weather. I was just talking to our weather guy. He's like, yeah, it's coming in.
What do we got? A wintry mix?
I
love snow. I don't want rain. I'll take snow. We got a snow game?
We might be getting snow. Hey, why not? For you to get another game, this one at Highmark now, old Ralph Wilson Stadium. Why not get the whole experience?
How about OJ, that game against New England late in 73, ran for over 200 yards, the game where he broke Brown's record at Shea Stadium?
Yeah.
OJ from San Francisco and USC, probably the greatest snow runner of all time. So I say we have a snow.
That's it. We'll see if it happens. Hey, we really appreciate it, and we appreciate your insight on Buffalo and the history. We know you know it, and we know you're going to be having an emotional but a fun weekend in Western New York again. So, Greg Papa, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you at the game on Sunday.
I think I'm going to bring Rob Savarino, Mike. I'm going to bring Sav.
That's it. One of my buddies from Ithaca College in the day. All right, that's going to do it for us. We thank all of you for watching. We hope you're having a great Thanksgiving week. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you the next time on Buffalo Plus.